Welcome, national and international viewers, to our national award-winning program, Let's Talk America with host Shana Thornton. Of course, I am Shana, and so excited to be with you here on another segment of Real Talk. It's our video segment where we speak with the best advocates and experts out there. And of course, we love covering the health topics. And we're so excited to have a friend of this show back on. It's the one and only acclaimed internist, Dr. Ken Redcross. Dr. Redcross, welcome back to the
Oh,
program.
thank you, Shayna. Hello, everyone out there. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, always excited to have you on because you come in with the information that is so critical to allow us to not only have longevity, but
Yes.
quality of life. And I want to just always dive right into the topic. But before we do, I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners have seen you on this program and other many programs out there as well. You're very well known. But for the next minute or so, Dr. Redcross, tell us what's your why, if you will. Why are you
Oh
so
my gosh.
committed to helping as many people as possible to be the best, healthiest version of themselves?
Shayna, I appreciate that question, everyone. So, as Shayna mentioned, I've been so fortunate and blessed to be in this field for so long. I am a practicing internal medicine physician. I'm a concierge physician, which means I'm there whenever you need me. But more importantly, I was very fortunate to realize, Shayna, that my why is all of you out there listening and watching. I started early and realized that the patient-doctor relationship is what completes me. It's what
Yeah.
makes me the happiest and fulfills me. And so I go each and every day trying to get through all four things: trust, respect, empathy, and communication, which you all need with your doctor. So that's my passion and that's my why, to make sure all of you are both healthy and happy.
I love it, and those are so key. I also want to mention you're an award-winning, best-selling author as well, where you talk about that communication and that connection between that patient and the medical provider, which is key. I want to dive right into it, sir, on the T that you talked about, and that's trust.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of information out there, Dr. Redcross. I don't need to tell you that.
Yeah.
And when I say out there, I mean a lot of it online, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There are a
Yeah.
lot of legitimate news sources, as you know, and there are a
Hmm.
lot of ones that just simply aren't valid. And social media is out there, and as much as we love it to allow us to share photos about our kids and nieces and nephews and
Yeah.
grandkids, there's also information put out by sources that seem to be a bit questionable at times.
Yeah.
And a lot of fun videos are not always accurate. Right now, obviously, you're the medical expert. I'm not. There are a lot of trends taking place on many different avenues, different apps out there. I know
Sure.
TikTok is one that we all love watching and
Yeah.
we laugh at. But talk with us about some very serious topics that have been covered where people think they're being cutesy and they're sharing things that work for them, but really how that can be detrimental for others.
Shane, this is such an important question to ask, really, today of where we are. So you're right. We used to get our information. I used to always have to battle Dr. Google. Now it's TikTok Doc. So it's just kind of changed a bit, but it's the same thing. When
Yeah.
you look at one of the bigger crazes that was out there, Shayna, it was this Ozempic challenge.
Mhm.
This Ozempic challenge, just so everyone knows, just quickly, Ozempic is a diabetic medication, everyone. And so, because of Ozempic and they thought associated with weight loss as well, it really, really blew up. Now, the only good thing I can find from that particular challenge, Shayna, is the fact that it introduced us to a very important herbal ingredient called berberine.
Okay.
So berberine got grouped into there, called nature's Ozempic, because berberine does some important things. It does help as far as support your blood sugar. It does help as far as support your cholesterol, but the weight loss part, not so much. That's not really why
Okay.
berberine was designed. But in any case, it was just an example of how you look at these things on TikTok and you think they're not big deals, and you realize they're a little bit more than you think, because the news, even now, is we're hearing that the FDA is coming out and putting new warnings on
Yeah.
Ozempic now because they're learning more and more about it. So always recognize that these things that are
Mhm.
on TikTok are not law. You always have to come back to someone in one of these white coats
Yeah.
that went to school to be able to help you.
Absolutely. You've been on our show so many times, and you do obviously talk about the seriousness that comes with obesity and
Yep.
inflammation and all of the disease states that can be triggered by being overweight, which America has a problem with obesity. We know that. So
Yeah.
when someone hears challenges such as the Ozemic challenges or, other ones out there, they're like, well, people are losing weight, Dr. Redcross. And
Right.
isn't that what physicians or providers like yourself want? But tell us the importance of, yes, obviously you want us at a healthy BMI, healthy weight.
Yep.
to hold on, that we're going to be consistent with, not up and
Yep.
down yo-yo
There
dieting.
you go.
But talk with us about the dangers of perhaps even losing too fast or not being proper in how we're losing, especially if you have other underlying conditions, perhaps.
Yeah, so let's use real world example. We're talking about berberine in this case and Ozempic. And Ozempic, everyone, there's another medication which is just like Ozempic, just a higher dose called Wegovy. That's really the one that was designed for this weight loss. But as we are learning, there's not one size fits all. There's no magic bullet. FDA let us know that recently as well. The other thing I get a lot, Shana, too, is that everyone says, okay, Dr. Redcross, I heard you on a show or somewhere talk about berberine and the Ozempic. What do I do? Where do I get it? I tell them you look for reputable companies with any supplement. My one of my favorite ones is Doctor's Preferred because I know that it's doctor formulated, vetted, and very trustworthy. Those are the things you have to look for, not just with berberine, with any of these supplements. And when it comes to supplements from weight loss, everyone be very, very skeptical, because there's not really a good way to do it without, and I like to say diet and exercise, but I don't mean a true diet, everyone. I mean just being mindful with what you're eating as far as your calories and so forth. So don't jump on a lot of these crazes because usually the studies show, Shana, you end up gaining 2 times what you lost, especially with some of the other medications. So it's a really, really big deal. And it's really important that you talk to your doctor about these things before you start to jump in these sort of waters, especially when it comes to weight loss.
Absolutely. You are watching Let's Talk America with host Shana Thornton. I'm Shana, on with the one and only internist Dr. Ken Redcross, and we're breaking down some of the latest trends out there on social media, medical trends that are not always healthy, right?
Right,
So we want to
right.
be mindful of it for sure. When you talked about, we're talking about Ozemic, we're talking about losing the weight. Also, we've seen in the news that there was a shortage because there has been a craze to get a hold of this drug, if you will, that's new to so many people. And I'm assuming, am I right, that it operates as an appetite suppressant?
That's a good point. That's part of what it does. It also helps to delay our stomach emptying its contents to be absorbed in our body with the sugar. So
Okay.
it works a couple of different ways, and also at the brain level, as well. So it works in a bunch of different ways. But once again, we're learning that these crazes, you always have to still be a little careful about these things and making sure. So this isn't, even though I am a Western trained physician, everyone, and I'm more open to the Eastern way of healing. I like to, as I like to say, Shana, stay closer to the earth when we're putting things in our
Yes.
body. But still, it's something that you have to make sure that you have a discussion with your doctor. I tell them when we were talking about berberine or Ozempic, you bring the bottle in, you go through the ingredients. Is
Okay.
this good for me? Are there any drug interactions? Are there any contraindications that I should or should not take this? Once again, it's this sharing back and forth, especially when you're talking about something as important as diabetes, Shana.
Absolutely. I have to ask this because it seems to be a new class of medication, certainly for most of us who are non-medical, right? And not very familiar with it.
Right.
Is this drug or class of drugs intended to be used long term? And for one, diabetics, those who've already been
Oh,
diagnosed,
wow.
or perhaps even the pre-diabetics, because I don't need to tell you, there have been internists and family practitioners who I have been told by family and friends who have suggested perhaps when they're on the border of being diabetic, perhaps it's a great time to try this drug.
Oh gosh, that's really a good question there. So listen, everyone. So there's two types of diabetes. There's type 1. That one you typically find when you're younger. It's different. It's autoimmune. Your body's kind of fighting itself to make the insulin. That's different. The one we typically talk about a lot is type 2, everyone. Now, type 2 is the one to where diet and exercise can make a really, really big difference. It's the one that's also associated with obesity as well. So when you're learning and thinking about these things and understanding even the pre-diabetic, everyone, this is a spot. This is a where you can make a really big difference at the pre before you get to the diabetes level. What is the pre level? Usually around 5.7. So Shana, when you have what's called an hemoglobin A1C, everyone, that's the amount of sugar on your red blood cell. We
Okay.
measure that. That number, if it's over 6.5, you have been diagnosed with diabetes. But there's a window. So there's a 5.7 to 6.4. That's the pre-diabetic, Shana. And those are the ones I want to tackle and get early so that we can stop that trend. So this is where some people thought about Ozempic. This is when some people thought about some of the other diabetic medications. I, once again, stay closer to the earth. That's kind of the berberine talk I kind of have before we go to the prescription stuff.
Okay.
But the point is that you have to kind of understand these numbers and make sure above all that you're getting into the doctor and getting your hemoglobin A1C, it's called, everyone.
I see, and that's important. And so, and I know this drug class seems to be new for most of us. Is it intended to be like an antihypertensive that Dr. Redcross
No,
may
yeah,
put his patients on? Do they necessarily have to likely take it for the rest of their life, or no?
yeah.
It's temporary.
No, thank you, Shane. I forgot to mention that. So look, as with any of these medications, I know it's hard for us to continue to take them. These are chronic medications. So there are other diabetic medications that we know a little bit better, and we know that they're okay chronically, but you're right, Shana. It's always one of those things that when I do have a patient that does need the prescription medication, it's always like, Doc, am I going to keep this forever? And I
Mhm.
always say, not necessarily with
Okay.
lifestyle changes. I know it's tough because they always seem so difficult, but they don't have to
Mhm.
be. When you realize even losing a few pounds can really make a really, really big difference
Yes.
on blood sugar levels and weight and that sort of thing. So, to answer your question specifically, not necessarily, but you definitely have to make some lifestyle changes if you want that to happen
Either way. So it
or to
seems
be an
like
option.
it seems there's no easy way really to get there. There's no magic pill,
No.
if you will. You're saying at the end of the day, you really do need to go back to a well-balanced diet, right? And
Yeah.
and movement, the fitness part to it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I talk so much about that, guys. So movement, what is movement? It's 150 minutes of exercise a week. The studies
Okay.
already show if we all of us listening and watching, got 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise, our mortality, our kind of death rate is reduced
Yeah.
by like 23 to 28%. Simply that, 30 minutes a day. So something like that paired with the right, and like you said diet. I like to say kind of meal plan because when people hear diet, they're like, oh, is it paleo? Is it keto? No, I'm talking balance, Shayna. That's all I'm asking for is balance and some of that exercise. And I promise you can get some of the results that we all really want.
You mentioned a word before we jump back into some of the trends out on social media. You
Yeah,
mentioned keto. And when we talk about diabetics, we've talked about insulin resistance, and we've talked about the notion of course, diabetics have to be very mindful of some of the foods that they eat.
yeah.
I don't need to tell you that keto or any low carb diet, and they've been around for many, many
Oh,
years. They've been
forever.
called different names, right?
Yep, exactly.
They somehow catch on, they go viral, if you will, even before the internet, where
Right.
people have said it works. In your professional medical opinion, of it, you treat a lot of diabetics, a lot of
Sure.
pre-diabetics.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on a healthy lifestyle of keeping foods and high carbohydrate count in check?
All right. So I think of it two ways, everyone. So the first thing I always tell everyone, especially my diabetics, do your best to avoid the white foods, bread,
Okay.
rice, pasta. That already helps a lot as far as the amount of real sugar you're getting. The
Okay.
second thing I talk about is that balance piece. I say, like, my kind of special Red Cross sort of meal plan is 60-40-20, 60
Okay.
grams of carbs, 40 grams of protein, and 20 grams of fat. How do you get all those things? Well, you get your fat from healthy sources, nuts,
Okay.
nut butters. You get your carbs, you make sure you get them from beans, from brown rice, things of that nature. So, really, what that gets back to, everyone, and telling you that, it's really back to that balance thing. So, if you are a diabetic or borderline, if you can avoid the white foods and think about that 60-40-20 kind of balance, that kind of reins you in calorie wise and tends to do really well for my diabetics or pre-diabetics to bring
Okay.
pre-diabetics out of that phase.
So, and it's so interesting you say that because when we talk about low carb diets, which
Mm-hmm.
have taken off, and there have been very
Mm-hmm.
legitimate journals who have talked about a low carb lifestyle, you're saying we still need carbs because I noticed when you did your breakdown, and you
Yep.
even mentioned brown rice, and obviously this is for general information, for specific information of those who may be battling diabetes or pre-diabetes. Please always speak with your own
Yep.
provider,
Thank
your
you.
own internist, wherever you are. But so you're saying it is necessary. So it doesn't sound like you're a fan of eliminating or attempting to eliminate all carbohydrates because I've always been told this, and let me know if I'm right. You get your energy from carbs, but it's choosing the right ones. Is that
Yep.
right?
That's exactly right. That is so well said on your part, Shannon, because look, carbs are not evil. It's just the importance of making sure it's that B word, it's back to balance and choosing the healthy carbs that our bodies really want, the whole grains, things of that nature. With Americans, we usually don't. We reach for things that leave powder on our fingers. I say no. If anything, Shana, leaves a powder on your fingers, everyone, don't eat it, please. It's not usually good for you, whether it's a something O's or something O's. That's not a thing. We want to avoid those.
And really quick, when you talk about things that leave powder on our hands, it helps makes me go to processed foods,
There you
which
go.
as working parents around the world, they're like, well, I hear Dr. Red Cross, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, but if I'm leaving the office, I'm hustling, bustling, or they're whatever they're doing, it's very tough. How
Yeah.
evil are processed foods, or you just keep that in check as well?
Yeah, well, look, in check and honestly, everyone, to do your best to just avoid them. Remember, there's also something that's really important: our microbiome. That's the good bacteria in our gut, everyone. And the processed foods, the diet cokes. I don't mean to mention brand, but those diet products you have to be really, really careful with because once again, all of our immune system, as we're dealing with, flu and COVID and all that, a lot of it is housed in the gut. So we want to keep our microbiome really, really in check. And so that's when you start thinking of these processed foods really wreaking havoc on our body. Think about healthy snacks. I'm probably, some of my snacks are unique. I go out, I have a bag of spinach, I have half of a cucumber, I have some slices of peppers. Things, once again, healthy carbs, really good for the microbiome. So there's a way to do it, but you just have to kind of plan a bit.
Yeah, and it sounds like I once heard a dietitian say, "Eat more plants, not what's from a plant,"
Oh, I like that. I
meaning
like that.
manufactured plants.
I like that. I may have to borrow that if that's not patented. I love that.
That was a good one. And before we leave out, sir, any other concerning trends for you out there on social media, or just some urban myths or myths in general that you're hearing as a physician that's concerning?
Yeah, so look, guys, there's another couple ones that really gained a lot of popularity, and I like them for different reasons, but just need to caution you. One was called the water chugging challenge. Just so you know, it's just like the name implies. It was drinking as much water as you could, as fast as you could. I'm here to tell you that that can be very, very dangerous overall. That lowers the sodium in our bodies, and our bodies don't like that. But it does allow me to talk about the importance of hydration. It does allow me to make sure that a lot of you who see this, if you have heart disease or heart failure, you don't want to drink that much water. So once again, it gets back to talking to your doc. The other one, Shana, that I thought was good was the box breathing challenge. This was pretty much kind of a meditative thing. A young woman, well, actually, the box breathing challenge is one in which it allows you to kind of focus on the importance of breathing, which is important nowadays, especially for mental health. And
Yes.
so I like that. It's a certain way you take in certain inhalations and exhalations. But the key is if you find yourself having to do too much box breathing each and every day, you may have to pick up the phone and call us. Are we dealing with an anxiety disorder? Are we dealing with
Okay.
depression? So don't look at these things as your doctor, but make sure you have a discussion with your doctor about them to see if it really fits you.
Yeah, such a great point. I think social media, again, there's been some perks all the way around,
Yeah.
sharing great information, seeing posts from yourself and other physicians and providers as well. But I think when you see so called experts, and
Yeah.
no offense, a lot of them are not, they've
Mhm.
not gone to school to
Yeah.
give this information. And I'm not just talking physical health. You've seen a lot of ones taking off on relationship advice. Dr. Red
Oh,
Cross, you're all
oh,
over the
oh,
place.
oh yes, oh yes. I remember the Miss Cleo. I don't mean to date myself, not to put down Miss Cleo. My point is, get your advice from someone else, someone with a jacket, please, please.
Something, yes, that's certainly credible, if you will. But when they're giving these advice and they're saying this, and that, and and that's not to say social media has not connected the world. Of course, it
Right,
has, sir.
right.
But talk to us about the importance of giving advice and sort of seeking therapy, be it psychological, be it physical, whatever emotional support. As much as social media can be helpful, tell us how harmful it may be. Because I think we think of it all the time with our teenagers. We say,
Yeah.
well, it's not great for our preteens. It can get in their mind. But what about adults that are 38 years old and
No.
48 and 58?
No, no, and that is a very, very good point. This social media thing, as you mentioned, Shana, it's new. The kids, we already know the impact, but we never really think about that. And the social media aspect that I see the most, especially for adults, it's definitely the health piece, but it's the mental health piece that you get with there, with feeling like you're not enough. You haven't done enough. Look at your career. Look
That's
at
right.
what they're doing. Guys, it's not. real. Believe me, I've met enough to understand that it's not real. And so when you're really there and you're thinking about this, as far as the social media aspect, it's really important that I always say, I talk to patients about this. I ask them what some of the trends are because I can't keep up with all of them. But when they come, I look at them, I learn them, and I realize like this may not be good for you for this, but maybe we can take a piece of that because I don't want to vilify social media because so
Right.
many of us do it each and every day. But it is important that once again you get that sharing back and forth, especially for us as adults when we've kind of got to a point and we're like, okay, where are we? Did I get to what I wanted to achieve? And how do
Yeah.
you manage that sort of thing? It's not easy, but it's something that once again requires that discussion and not being afraid to say, I'm having some mental health challenges that maybe I do need to talk to someone.
Yeah, certainly, and not always exclusively seek your therapy from going on perhaps Instagram, Facebook, or
No,
TikTok. Not
no.
to knock them, but you certainly do need some credible sources. And let me say this in all fairness, not 30-second snippets from even legitimate sources like you. As much as that's helpful, it's always best to go see or schedule an appointment of some sort with the provider. You would agree?
It really is. It's incredibly important. It's the reason why, once again, it's been my passion. There's something that unites all of us, no matter what side of the aisle you're on politically, no matter your ethnicity, we're all going to be a patient. And so that's why I think
Absolutely.
it's so, so important to have that bond and relationship that all of us deserve.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Speaking of deserved quality of life, longevity, we're going to wrap up. What a great conversation with you, sir. But if you could give us any last pieces of advice, pearls of wisdom for those who are saying, look, I'm a working dad, I'm a working mom. They're saying the weight won't come off. They've done everything, they've done every fad diet that's been out there. They've tried to do the ab workouts that are on Instagram, and they're saying they're not dropping the weight. Help them right now and tell them, just encourage them best you know how, sir.
The thing I always tell my patients, because I have so many, Shana, with that exact story, is that you stay closer to the earth. And when I say that, we start talking about a lot of these things that are so important in what we put into our bodies, back to that kind of meal plan, back to that exercise, and also spirituality. Not necessarily religious for everyone, but you have to have something spiritually that makes you want to fight each and every day in this life and really take in a lot of advice and look out for support as well.
Yeah, so key the support. It's all about that balance, right? So
It is.
treating the entire self, the holistic person, be it mental, emotional, and physical and spiritual health. Always a pleasure, Dr. Redcross, to have you here on Let's Talk America Radio, a friend of this show. We're going to have you back on because we're continuing along the journey of health. Where can our viewers find out more information about you and your platform?
Sure. So my website, everyone, is drkenredcross.com, and all my social media handles are at Dr. Ken Redcross. I look forward to meeting new friends, so please reach out and say hello.
Thank you, Dr. Redcross. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. As he said, stay plugged in, especially to your health and what's going on. Again, we mentioned it earlier, but I did want to say great information from Dr. Ken Redcross, of course, an acclaimed internist, but for specific information on your condition that you may be having, please seek your own medical advice wherever you are for more specific details. Because everybody differs. My body is different from yours, so you certainly want to check in with your own provider. Stay connected to Let's Talk America Radio. Visit ltaradio.com or follow us on your favorite social media outlet. And we'll be sure to make sure we're sharing credible information, Dr. Redcross. That's our promise.
Good, good, good. Thank you for having me on, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Have a great one, everyone,
You
and
too.
stay your best. Take care.